All right, now this audience looks a little light. So everyone who's chatting outside, if you can hear me, come in because this is going to be one of the best conversations of the day. All right, so anyone who's followed the beauty industry over the last decade knows that for a while, anyway, it seemed that the only way to build a brand in beauty was to go out and to raise money. The headlines have glorified these big rounds, these big valuations, and occasionally some big exits as well. But as the era of easy money has sort of come and gone, the conversation has shifted. And today founders are asking a very different question. The question that they're asking is, can I build my brand and scale it in a meaningful way on my own terms? So in today's conversation, we're going to seek to uncover the art, the mindset, the upsides, and even some of the challenges that come with bootstrapping a beauty brand. The decision not to raise money or not yet isn't just financial, believe it or not. It's more philosophical. And so we're here with a group of panelists who have done just that. So thank you all for being here. Special shout out to Cassandra, who red-eyed in for this panel from the Ulta dinner in New York City last night. So thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate it. Let's kick off the conversation by starting at the beginning. So for each of you, did you guys choose to bootstrap, or did bootstrap choose you? So Cassandra, why don't we start with you?
I definitely chose bootstrapping. I don't know if I would even say that I sat there and I was like, do I want to bootstrap or do I want to raise money? It was more like, how do I survive this week and then maybe next week? I also didn't have a 5-year plan, so I think for me, bootstrapping was really the only choice. I'm also not a fan of debt, so being able to go to sleep at night knowing I could pay my bills was pretty much all I needed. But yeah, I definitely chose bootstrapping.
Yeah, I mean, I think that that's pretty normal. Very few brands start with a 5-year plan. Some do. The bankers who start beauty brands and the consultants who start beauty brands start with a 5-year plan, but very few do.
I don't even think I had a 3-month plan.
Yeah, yeah, but most of us are sort of in the how do I pay my bills today plan.
Exactly.
I got it. Greg, how about you? Did you choose bootstrapping, or did bootstrapping choose you?
Well, we chose bootstrapping, but we did it a little bit more uniquely.
Pull your mic up.
We did it a little bit more uniquely. Is that better?
Yeah, it's better.
In the sense that, well, 20 years ago, there wasn't really, private equity money. It was mostly a little bit of friends and family. I spent, I want to say 3 years developing a business plan that we actually executed flawlessly. And the strategy around that was, part of the bootstrap strategy was to pre-sell the business. We went out, we pre-sold throughout professional distribution. I had distribution lined up throughout the country. I delivered about $500,000 in revenue. We worked with our contract manufacturer that gave us extended terms as well. And that's how we basically began to really kind of self-fund the business.
Yeah, I love that. It's so funny because the bootstrappers among us, they often have to get creative, and using vendors. This is something that we talked about at our beauty MBA yesterday with our Next 50 brands. Mm-hmm. Using vendors is a creative way to sort of get through the cash flow crunch sometimes. So I can totally feel that.
Yeah, I mean, they're your biggest partner. And,
yeah.
They're constantly looking to feed their funnel. And, if you have a strong business plan, they're going to want to blue sky with you, right? And see you along that journey. Of course, they're going to want some level of certainty to make sure that they're going to get paid. But that is going to be one of your most important partnerships.
Yeah. Can everyone in the audience hear Greg? Yeah? Okay. Maybe if we can get someone to give a handheld mic to Greg, just so.
Oh, thank you.
Or
you see, this is when you have an accessory professional.
Yeah, there we go.
There you go. Okay.
Is that better?
Can you hear me now?
Okay. Is that better? Can you guys hear him?
It's a great marketing slogan.
Yeah. Okay, Matthew, how about you? Did you choose bootstrapping, or did bootstrapping choose you?
Yeah, I think we were very similar to Cassandra in the sense that we didn't really have a plan going in. We were outsiders. We came from the fashion industry, so there was no real blueprint that we had in our minds of how to grow a fragrance brand. We just wanted to create a beautiful luxury brand. So we really just came at it at first principles, grew our independent retailer mix, focused on storytelling, and at the same time really growing our DTC business. But since we didn't have any expectations to grow super fast, it gave us a lot of room to really develop our brand at the beginning. So it really helped us scale later in our life.
Yeah, and in some ways, like the bootstrapping conversation is sort of indicative of the time that you guys founded your brands, because as Greg said, there really wasn't like a venture capital ecosystem for beauty brands or for consumer brands in general. Yeah. In my previous life, when I was working at a small to mid-cap private equity fund that was focused on consumer, we were venture capital, but we were looking at companies that had 5 million of EBITDA, meaning they probably had 20 million of sales. So getting from 0 to 20 was sort of your responsibility, and then after that, the private equity money sort of took shape. Now, of course, we have a whole ecosystem of brands, of investors that are looking at brands at much earlier stages. But I guess the next question I'd like to ask all of you is, do you think it's still possible to bootstrap a beauty brand in 2025? Greg, why don't you start?
More than ever. I mean, I think all that we've talked about all morning long, the ecosystem through AI, through commerce, it's wide open. And it allows someone to get in, establish their brand position, their story, beginning to start to communicate, establish those community relationships to really not only drive proof of proposition, but more importantly, consumer trial and build that loyalty. And that's the foundation that will propel you ultimately. We didn't have that back then.
Matthew, what do you think? Is it still possible?
Yeah, I think it's totally possible, and I think the infrastructure is much better than it was 10, 15 years ago when we started. Even with manufacturers, I see a lot of factories that open that cater to smaller brands with lower minimums. I see a lot of suppliers, the same thing. And I think if you just create a wonderful foundation of a beautiful product and keep your margins right, there's this insatiable desire from consumers for newness at all times, and then even with retailers. So if you could just build momentum at the beginning, there's just such a desire for your product.
Cassandra, what about you?
I think bootstrapping is not sexy or glamorous. And I think that a lot of how we live our lives today, we're very impatient. And I think bootstrapping takes a lot of patience. And I agree with both of you, but I don't think we hear enough stories that foster this environment of we're doing this because we love what we do and we're really proud of it. And I think those stories need to be told a little bit more. It's not about having a billion-dollar brand in just a few years. You can have a very small brand that's profitable and you can survive off of it and it's fun and you enjoy it and you love what you do. But that's not celebrated. So yes, I think you can bootstrap a brand today, but I just don't know if there's enough information out there for people to kind of deprogram what the industry has taught us, what a successful beauty brand looks like.
Well, all of us here are very glamorous. There we go.
Oh, thanks.
All of us here are very glamorous, and we're here to glamorize the bootstrapping path. So let's start that conversation.
But we're not always celebrated.
Yeah.
Right? We're not zero to hero brands, right? We're not amplified by the ecosystem of private equity that feels like the way to drive a brand to equity is to also promote the brand. We're not doing that on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
I don't think that we built these businesses to sell. We built them with purpose and a mission behind it. That's what continues to drive me today. And in having conversations with both Christine and Matthew, it seems that they kind of live that same ethos.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, really never before was it possible. I mean, I remember like, we would talk to brands that, I mean, actually a great one is like Rode. Like Rode came about in 2021. Now granted, it had, you know, celebrity founder, but like Rode came about in 2021 and sold for $1 billion just a few years later, right? And you don't even need to have a celebrity at your helm to sort of like scale that fast. But you do need capital to sort of scale that fast. If you're going to, you know, scale rapidly in 4 years, you need to have a partner. But you're right, Cassandra. Like the sort of the slow path is not overly glamorized sometimes. It's sort of the 4-year like up and out story that gets all the headlines. Yeah. Let's stick with you, Cassandra. So let's talk about how bootstrapping sort of instills like this like discipline, right? So you've talked about how bootstrapping forces this financial discipline of watching every dollar. How did that mindset shape the way you built and scaled Kitsch?
Well, the first office that we had, we pulled furniture out of the dumpster. It was nice. I don't know why someone threw it away. I wouldn't say understanding the P&L is my strong suit, but when you bootstrap a business, you don't have the luxury of hiring, I'm going to quote, experts for all the different facets of your business, but it forces you to like learn every part of the business, and for me, I'm really grateful for that because now I feel like I'm a much better decision maker. Knowing the P&L has provided me the expertise in product development, and then now I teach that to different departments that also don't want anything to do with, you know, the finance department. And I don't know. I just feel like when you really understand every single penny you're spending and why you're spending it, you get so much more creative, and you can do so much. You can do so much more with less. And a perfect example is photo shoots. Photo shoots can cost you $50,000, but still to this day we do it for like $1,500, and I think that they turn out just as great. So.
They do. I can tell you, when I was at Paper Magazine and we did the Kim Kardashian cover for Break the Internet, that cover cost us nothing. Cost us $0. So you can break the internet with a free photo shoot. Greg, you know, let's stay on this topic of the P&L. You've said that managing your P&L was critical to survival early on. What's your philosophy on sort of financial fluency when it comes to founders who aren't finance people?
I mean, listen, you know, the first thing you need to learn is how to read a P&L and to plan. You also need to be versed on your cash flow. You need to know what's going out, you need to know what's going in, and you need to plan for all of the hiccups that are going to happen along the way. You know, all of a sudden, a customer says they didn't get a shipment and it's $5,000. Well, $5,000 can be a lot of money when you're really hand to mouth, and or delayed payments. And so that's really critical, is to really kind of know what you have to work with and be prepared along the way. What really took me a good 5 years before I started developing such a really positive revenue flow that I was able to leverage lines of credit that we also began to manage the business with. But staying out of debt from day one was critical, because being in debt was not an option.
Yeah. Matthew, I discovered your brand, I think it was like, I don't know, 2012 or 13, something like that, in Stephen Allen, which is an independent that unfortunately doesn't exist anymore. But you've always sort of, when you first started your business, you were scaling in the independents and using independent retail to sort of keep your business moving. Tell us about that philosophy, and then as you grew, tell us how you started leveraging things like credit facilities, as Greg mentioned.
Yeah, independent retailers really formed a base for us, and just being very picky about getting in the right ones from the beginning. Like you said, Stephen Allen at that time had about 20 doors across the US, and they were kind of like a tastemaker store. And getting into that kind of worked as a showroom for us. And then, you know, slowly but surely, you'd get a lot of other luxury retailers coming to us. So it really enabled us, and we kept our head count and our expenses super low. But over time, we just kept building independent retailers. and then with our DTC business, just created a really healthy company. And with credit lines, we didn't open up our first credit line, I think, until like about year 6, and we really never touched it, but it gave us that sense of security. And as we've scaled, we use it more and more, but we have to be extremely careful. But it's a wonderful way to get cash into the business without having to give up any equity, so you have your freedom.
Yeah. Let's talk about sort of the creativity and resourcefulness required. So Greg mentioned one creative option, which is sort of using your vendors. One thing that you and I talked about was sort of leveraging marketing at retailers, right? So in today's times, like that marketing support has sort of decreased more and more, right? So how do you recommend founders who are just getting started at retail operate in an environment where that little trick is less and less available to them?
Yeah, I mean, this is one of the hardest areas that we face in our bigger retail partners like Sephora, but then comes back to, since we have such a great base of independent retailers, it really helps us grow the business. But in the bigger retail area, yeah, especially in fragrance, because it's kind of the hot area, you have a lot of brands that have gotten investment that we grew up with, and then you have the bigger, even skincare and color brands starting fragrance. And it seems like the bigger retailers, their marketing help really is concentrated towards the bigger brands now. So we just have to concentrate our spends and do it smartly. So when we do paid ads for Sephora or paid influencer campaigns, we just focus on sale periods or launches and just be really smart about how we do things. But I think it comes back to just building a really good base as a brand. And in our opinion, we have wonderful product and we're super authentic, which really just helps us in these retailers.
So it's about repeat purchase, it's about LTV, it's about like someone tries your product for the first time, you've gotten them into the mix, they have to love your product and come back, and that's the least expensive way to sort of continue.
Yeah, totally, and even word of mouth and just creating, I mean, with your beautiful products, just making sure that it creates the best customer experience possible.
Cassandra, I'm like sort of fascinated by your journey because you've scaled through hundreds of SKUs and retail placements without outside capital. What were some of the like smartest, scrappiest decisions that moved the needle for you along that path?
I don't think anyone's going to like this answer. I did door-to-door sales, and it's mortifying, embarrassing.
Why though?
Because you get rejected. You get rejected all the time. But I genuinely think that doing those experiences, like setting up at a farmer's market, we've forgotten this like real customer-facing experience where people will tell you, either with words or just completely ignoring you, whether or not your product is a winner. And I think those experiences are invaluable. And you could even, and I teach this to my daughter now, when she makes products, I make her set up a little table on Larchmont Boulevard. And if people are not stopping, asking questions, showing curiosity in your product, that tells you everything. And one of the things that I used to do is when I would do the door-to-door sales, if I didn't get the sale, I would ask the customer, why? Why don't you want it? And that is something that a lot of us maybe are too embarrassed to do because you don't want to hear the negative feedback. So they would tell me why they wouldn't buy it, and you know what I would do? I would go home, I would fix the product, and I'd be back the next day, and I would get the sale. Because when you're starting small, you have the luxury to be able to do that. And those customer insights really shaped who Kitsch is. We changed our whole packaging because of it. We changed how we pitched to retailers because of it. Those scrappy moments that are embarrassing, or maybe you think you might be too, it's not fancy or glamorous, like those are the things that I think are really important to preventing you from making very expensive mistakes later on.
Yeah, for sure. Greg, you had sort of an interesting story as well because you pivoted after the 2008 crash. and you actually built a professional strategy. Tell us about that.
Well, it was really omni-channel.
Well,
Yeah. So, again, my professional career was always in pro beauty. That was our core channel of business. In 2008, the crash happened. L'Oreal purchased our largest market distributor, which was Beauty Alliance, which today is SalonCentric, the largest, independent or beauty distributor nationally. They also subsequently purchased Pureology and basically left us out in the dust as well. Wanted to return $300,000 in inventory. I said, I can't take it. That's another story for cocktails. But anyway, I was really left with about $375,000 in inventory stuffed in 3 storage lockers. And it was about how to pivot and find a marketplace. I really, truly believed in our mission and what we were doing. I knew the consumer was there. It was the early adapters that continued to just be loyal to what we were doing. And so, we were approached by Whole Foods. And, while we didn't make any money, it paid the bills.
Yeah.
Right? It was great operating capital, and it kind of allowed us to continue to gain traction. Social media began to really emerge. Safe cosmetic consumers, and then of course the likes of Credo and Detox began to emerge, and we were right there. And so we just kind of rebuilt our business in specialty retail, and of course Credo and Detox, helped us amplify our message. So that's where we really kind of grew and saw great scale, but it was about pivoting and not being so wedded. And today, not only is our retail business a significant chunk of our business, but, we've really refocused our attention on continuing to build our pro channels. And so we've done that globally as well. So, and having great success in all of our channels. So we have a really beautiful channel mix of business.
I love that. I think we should start a podcast called like The Art of the Pivot, because
Pivot happens.
So many great ideas come out of the pivot, right?
Yeah. You have to. It's a day-to-day. Anybody who sits in here and says it's all by design, it's not true. You have to, it comes at you fast every day.
Yeah. Well, bootstrapping takes a certain type of mindset. It's sort of like, we've sort of heard it a little bit from our conversation already. It's like this grit, this stubbornness. Maybe it's, you could describe it as a little bit of like a control freak strategy, just a little bit. What personal traits do you think are essential to sort of take the bootstrapping path? Greg, why don't we stick with you first?
Wow. Well, I think I said this earlier. You have to have just a desire to win. There's no failure, and I think that was been core to my belief every day. Is I refuse to fail. Even when Joanne was on the floor begging me to go back to work. And there was many times of that. But it was just about winning. And you just finally hit this tipping point where you can succeed. And every day I know that no matter what happens to Innersense, it will survive.
Yeah. Matthew, how about you? What are some of the traits that you think make a good bootstrapper?
Yeah, so many, but maybe resilience. Early on, even now, you get so many no's, so many things bad happen, and it's just, can you go to work the next day and keep going? And then also keeping positivity, because it's contagious within your company, and if you could just create that energy, it just snowballs into something really good.
Cassandra, how about you?
I would say it's a high level of private discipline. And what I mean by that is doing a lot of the unseen work where you don't get applause, there's no audience, there's no awards, but you still wake up and you do it every single day because you genuinely love to do it. And I think that isn't, it's really building the self-validation. Speaking up on a panel is so wonderful. It is, and talking about bootstrapping is so wonderful to new founders, to foster this. But that private discipline, the self-validation of waking up and getting to do this every single day, I feel like that is the greatest reward for owning and starting a business. And that should be where you start. And then you have the resilience. And then you're able to keep it all going.
Well, let's stick with that for a second because we're just about to be at time here before we go to questions. But for founders sitting in this audience today, and there's a lot of them, and they're, for those who are wondering, should I raise or not? Like, what's your best piece of advice? Cassandra, why don't we start with you?
I don't know. I really don't. It really just depends on the individual. It's just, I just really don't know. And for me, there was just no other way. I'm so grateful for it over 15 years later. I can only speak for myself. I'm so grateful I did this. And if you find yourself thinking, I need to bring someone in and like really peel back the layers, I think someone needs to save me. Like if you start thinking that way, like, oh, I need someone to help me do this because I just can't do it anymore, like, and you get kind of in that desperation mode, that doesn't mean you should bring in an investor. So just don't do it from a place of like needing to be saved, because no one will save you. It's usually, you have to save yourself.
Greg, how about you?
Yeah, I mean, you just almost kind of feel a lot of peer pressure, right? You got to do this. If you want to get here, you got to do this. And again, I've been at this for 20 years, and we just continue to do this without it. I like making decisions without having to make 4 phone calls to get approval.
Yeah.
For those of you who know me, I move quick. And so I love the freedom that it allows us as a team as well. But there's times where I think about having a bigger partnership infrastructure behind us. But you never know what the future brings. But right now, we're just on such a great track that we feel really healthy where we're at.
Yeah, I mean, that is something that I wanted us to talk about. We kind of ran out of time, is that, investors not only bring capital, but they bring, sort of a sounding board. So there is that aspect of it. Matthew, what about you?
Yeah, I'm with Cassandra a little. It's hard, it's such a personal decision. But yeah, at the end of the day, no one's going to come and save you. But I could see if you're not comfortable just doing every facet of the business for an extended period of time, and you really just want to focus on either what you're good at or what you have a passion with, perhaps bringing capital in to have an investor then help build a team for you. But for us, Marie and I, that's just not the way we do things, and we've been so satisfied with what we built, and it's one of the most rewarding things to be a bootstrap company. So, I highly recommend it, and it's going to be tough at times, but at the end, you'll prevail.
All right, we have time for a question or two. Does anyone have a question for these guys? Raise your hand. Oh, Elvis. Hold on, Elvis, just so everyone can hear you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Cassandra. My question is for you. Mm-hmm. I think you mentioned something that I think is very interesting when you were talking about, sort of starting small, going from door to door, getting the feedback, and sort of seeing where you can change. I think I want to understand through your lenses, how do you know that you're now, I guess, blurring the lines or like teetering towards that passion or that you started with because you're trying to like appeal to the market you're trying to serve? Is there a way to tell? That's one. Number two, I know it is very clear that like you're not looking to raise funds or anything like that, but I do think that there are other people here who may be interested in doing that. So if you found yourself in a position where that had to happen, what are, I guess, some key markers or key things you would consider before moving forward with it? I hope that makes sense.
Okay. That's a great question. I feel like questions. I think you need to understand when you're starting a business, is this a passion project? Is it just for me? Because if it's just for you and you're sitting there and your business plan is, I want to cater to a very small audience who understands this very specific craft, then you don't need to listen to everyone else's advice. If your goal is to be servicing to a large audience, you need to get the feedback. And my brand is a masstige brand, and I want to cater to everybody and multiple different locations in the world and different price points. And so for me, that was really important to get that feedback. So you just need to figure out what's your strategy in that regard. And then it's an interesting question about investors. I don't know, but I would assume if I were to be looking for one, the question, just to make sure I'm understanding, what would I be asking them if I were, okay. In an investor. I would make sure that I would have a clear understanding of what they would want from me on a month-to-month basis. Are they going to need me to be doing financial reporting every month? Do I have to be doing a board meeting? Are they going to kick me out of, certain control areas that you still want to be in charge of? I know so many female founders that they spend 90% of their time preparing for the next board meeting. And that is a reality that I don't think people talk about enough. And if you don't like managing a P&L and you go and get an investor and your team is really small, guess what you're going to be doing every single day? You're going to be managing a P&L. Because you're going to have to tell them what you're spending money on, why you're spending money on it. You're going to have to run financial models, bottoms-up forecastings for retailers. You're going to stop doing the thing why you started the business in the first place. And it won't be fun anymore. So the questions I would ask were, what are your expectations of me? What type of controls will I continue to have? How frequently are we going to meet? And remember, too, when you get an investor and you have something special, what they're doing is they're actually extracting information from you to provide to their other portfolio brands. So it's not just what are they going to help you for. They're going to be taking resources from you to provide, everybody else. So, it's got to be an exchange for them too, beyond money.
All right, well, we're out of time, so...
I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. Thank you guys so much. This has been such a brilliant conversation. You guys have built such iconic brands and done it so admirably. So thank you so much for being up here and for taking the time to chat with us.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.